Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening to some of you as well. But you know why? Because this is the watch list and we are broadcasting everywhere. Good to see you guys on another edition of the show. I will be flying solo. So yes, no guest host today. It is a Thursday. It's just me and you guys. So hopefully I'll have some more opportunities to speak with you guys, read a few more comments, see what you guys are talking about. But also make sure that you guys do remember to like, subscribe, share the stream. Let your friends and family know about what we have going on here, because it's good times. We're gonna follow all the videos of the day and the stories that make things, that drive the news, and make sure that people are talking about what's really going on. So glad to see you guys here. Hold on, wow. Things are already jumping around. Today has been quite a day, I have to tell you guys that. Because now computers are jumping around all the place. I've been running around all morning, sitting in LA traffic, dealing with people, Prius drivers. So I'm not in the best of moods. So I'm glad you guys are here now, because if I sat here by myself, I would just stew in my anger and annoyance. Luckily, I get a chance to take it out on these stories just a little bit. So I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say, but let's get started right away. Fox News, wow. They're dealing with more issues when it comes to real consequences behind when they tell these fake news stories. And a lot of times people don't understand what the reality of many situations are. But there is the ongoing back and forth legislation, and I'm sorry, not legislation, back and forth going on, lawsuits going on from Smartmatic with Fox News. And they had a bit of a victory when one particular person that was going back and forth on this was exonerated of her connections to these lies about the voting machines. But they did have a few other consequences when it came to their particular company, when they tried to get things pushed aside and these lawsuits dismissed. Let's watch what is going on with Fox News and these Smartmatic lawsuits.
Our company Smartmatic is suing Fox Corporation, the parent of Fox News, for $2.7 billion. Accusing the network and 3 of its hosts of pushing bogus election conspiracies that they knew were not true. The lawsuit also names the former president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and legal associate, Sidney Powell. They all stand accused of spinning a fake tale with zero evidence that Smartmatic's voting technology was somehow compromised and to blame for the former president's election loss. The defamation lawsuit filed today in Manhattan states, without any true villain, defendants invented one. Defendants decided to make Smartmatic the villain in their story.
So this week, a judge did reject Fox News's motion. They were looking to dismiss the $2.7 billion lawsuit that Smartmatic has been put on the network. Now the thing is although it's gonna continue on, these lawsuits are quite a bit difficult to win, because the plaintiff here, in this case, of course, Smartmatic, has to prove that the person, or in this case, Fox News, was acting with actual malice, so that they're like this preconceived idea that they're doing it specifically to harm Smartmatic, and maybe not just to push some propaganda in the favor of Donald Trump. So in this particular case, Smartmatic does have a strong case, regardless of the high level that they do have to prove here, but it does rely pretty heavily on segments like this from Tucker Carlson. Watch.
Last night, in a segment about voter fraud and investigations into it, we told you about Sidney Powell, the former federal prosecutor, and her claim that roughly 7 million votes were secretly changed on election night by rigged vote counting software. Well, in the last 24 hours since we did that, we've heard from a lot of people about that segment, including people in the White House and people close to the president. Like us, they have concluded that this election was not fair. Like us, they are willing to believe any explanation for what happened. Like us, they have not seen a single piece of evidence showing that software changed votes. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, it might have happened. It means they haven't seen any evidence that it happened. And by they, we are including other members of Donald Trump's own legal team. They have not seen Powell's evidence either. No testimony from employees inside the software companies, no damning internal documents, no copies of the software itself. So that's where we are. Sidney Powell came on Fox this morning and suggested we may not have to wait much longer. I fully expect, she says, that we will be able to prove all of it in a court within the next 2 weeks. Well, as far as we're concerned, that is great news. If Sidney Powell can prove the technology companies switched millions of votes and stole a presidential election, she will have almost single-handedly uncovered the greatest crime in the history of this country, and no one will be more grateful for that than us.
There's a lot of ifs, would-bes, could-bes, hopefullys, and maybes in that entire statement. But folks who listen religiously to people like Tucker Carlson didn't hear those parts. They heard Sidney Powell is gonna come up with this next, in a couple weeks, all of this damning information that's gonna really put it on the map of what's going on. Now, they'll forget that for the past year and a half, these lawsuits, or at least these challenges to the election in 2020 have been seen in front of judges. They've been adjudicated in courts. And every time it's, you don't have anything. Then Mike Pillow says, I've got the best, I got all of the information, it's right here on the screen. He did like a 2-day symposium that had nothing. Then Rudy Giuliani says, I've got the goods. And then Donald Trump then says, oh, there's more information. There still has been no information. There's been no proof. But in saying this, as Tucker Carlson showed just there, there's so far nothing. He said there's nothing, then he went on another 30 seconds of how much there will probably be, or possibly, or could be. That's the whole point about this, is to continue to confuse you, to make sure that that the viewers are still drinking from this trough of lies, that something might happen. And then they go off and tell their friends, you know, Smartmatic totally rigged the election. Because that's the quick and short way to get to the bottom of these types of things for those types of viewers. So anyways, so that skepticism that he was pushing there is what helped the judge come to these conclusions, by the way, to continue this lawsuit. So let's look at this. The filing from New York Supreme Court Judge David Cohen notes that Carlson questioned whether there was any real evidence behind the quote stolen election narrative. Since the judge identified Carlson as arguably the single most influential conservative media personality in the United States, it is precisely because of his skepticism that the case might meet the standard of actual malice, because they continued to air these election conspiracies when he did point out there is nothing. If Tucker Carlson knows that there's nothing, Fox News probably knows that there's nothing, but they continue to push it. What was the reason? To lie to you, maybe to destroy Smartmatic. Smartmatic thinks it's because of them. Maybe they can pull that off in the court. So by the way, back to Tucker Carlson, because Fox News has won lawsuits citing Tucker Carlson and his lack of real facts before. It's just all the irony goes in this big circle here. So let's go to these details of what happened before. And I always love quoting this. U.S. District Judge Mary Kay Voskuil's opinion leaned heavily. This is when they forced Fox News to continue to have to deal with Tucker Carlson, or they actually let them off the hook for Tucker Carlson, which he goes and does his thing. Anyways, they leaned heavily on the arguments of Fox's lawyers. The general tenor of the show should then inform a viewer that Tucker Carlson is not, quote, stating actual facts about the topics he discusses, and is instead engaging in exaggeration and non-literal commentary. Exaggeration and non-literal commentary. You would wonder if maybe there's one of these legal things that they could put before Tucker's show that would let viewers know what you're about to watch is a dramatic reading of the news. It's also a dramatic opinion of the news that actually is not based in much fact. Let's continue on, because that judge also continued, and she said, Fox persuasively argues that given Mr. Carlson's reputation, by the way, Fox argues this, any reasonable viewer arrives with an appropriate amount of skepticism about the statement he makes. Fox News is telling the judge, hey, don't blame us, we're just an entertainment show. Are you gonna come after Reno 911 because they depict cops in a certain way? That's not necessarily what always happens. Same thing here. Tucker Carlson is depicting a news person, or maybe a pundit that means what he's saying. He doesn't. It's all written, it's all scripted. It's a comedy show, it's a sitcom. So that's what Fox News is. Next story. Republican Congressman there, Kevin McCarthy, he's having some trouble dealing with these radical members of his parties, particularly Paul Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, those types of characters. But he still hasn't found a way to really control them. And they pointed that out before too. Marjorie's talked about how McCarthy cannot control her because she's a Donald Trump stooge. I think McCarthy does believe it, because after they've attended their white nationalist event, Marjorie and Paul, after they attended it, he still has no way of figuring out how he can maybe punish them, keep them in line, make sure they don't go to another, but he's pretty confident. Let's watch.
update on your conversations with Congressman Gosar and Green?
Yes, I've talked to Green. I'm still waiting to talk to Gosar. I've talked to him.
But you said, I think you told Jake and Manu that there's no place for...
There isn't no place for that. There's no place for what has gone on with that organization by far, and there never will be in this party, and it will never be tolerated.
Will she go again?
Yes. No, she will not go again.
She get any repercussions for her?
Look, at my conversations with my members are exactly that, and I appreciate you asking.
Well, on this topic, I mean, 3 years ago when Steve King made comments that were sympathetic to white supremacists, you supported kicking him off this committee.
I removed him from committee.
Yeah, and obviously Green and Gosar are already off their committees, but you said in November that you'd return them to their committees and use that they might even get better committee assignments. Do you stand by that still?
They have the ability to be able to get committees based upon that time when it comes.
A different question.
Kevin's having a tough time here towing this line of making sure he doesn't anger Donald Trump enough, but then also trying to tell people that he's actually controlling any of these folks that are doing all these radical things under him. Because who really knows what many Republicans believe? Who knows what Kevin McCarthy really believes? He's just trying to figure a way to say enough to keep them on board because he's got to deal with these crazies in his party who are white nationalists, who are attending white nationalist events, and then saying, "Oh, that has no room in this party." When did that begin? A week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, right after they left the white nationalist event? At what point? That's the follow-up question here. I wish someone in the room had asked him. So when did you guys stop tolerating white nationalists in your party? Because 2 weeks ago, you didn't. And now that we're asking you about it now, they're gonna get some more committee assignments. Do you think white nationalists sit on committees within the Republican Party in Congress when you plan to take over in 2022? These are questions that he was hoping to not have to answer, and for his sake, he didn't have to. So a little bit more on the background of this after they were taken off those committees, because in case you guys forgot, this isn't the first time. So Marjorie Taylor Greene was removed from her House committee assignments last year after a series of intolerant remarks made before she came to Congress came to light. Gosar was also formally censured by the House and removed from his committees after sharing an anime cartoon video showing him appearing to kill AOC and attack President Biden. Greene also drew widespread scrutiny last year when she was comparing mask mandates in the House to the Holocaust. These are the things they want you to forget, and I guess they're right, many people do, but the problem is these radical people within his party continue to do these things. Once they do these things, he has to answer for it or run away like he did before. All these things have happened. McCarthy has employed all kinds of tactics to avoid actually answering the question about what he's not doing with the members of his party. So they're still sitting on these committees. And also they were asking specifically about Steve King, who had gotten kicked off committees and actually ended up out of Congress altogether because of his rabid racism. So let's look at a quick reminder of how what he was talking about before when it comes to drinking toilet water in migrant facilities, because that was definitely the target of his ire, was all those damn immigrants.
That was, I call it the red carpet treatment, but it was the official tour for members of Congress that the Border Patrol sets up. I went through the detainment facilities that are there. I got a good look at a good number of the folks that were detained in those facilities. I actually went into that cell where it was reported that they were advised they had to drink out of the toilet. I took a drink out of there, and it's actually pretty good. So I have a videotape and I smacked my lips, but I didn't send it out because I thought, this subject just needs to go into the rearview mirror. Why'd I bring it up now, you ask?
So that was in 2019. Now, by the way, that was 2019 when Trump was still in the office. So Kevin McCarthy didn't have to do this dance about trying to make sure that Trump's feelings weren't hurt after he was lying about not losing the 2020 election. That's where this all comes back to. Remember, Kevin McCarthy was totally against what happened on January 6th when it was January 6th. After he went to Mar-a-Lago to go and beg for his dignity back from Donald Trump, he's been towing the line ever since. So keep track of the timeline of Kevin McCarthy and reasons why he's doing this. I don't believe that Kevin McCarthy agrees with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar and the Lauren Boeberts. He just needs to continue to follow behind Donald Trump, who believes in Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, and Lauren Boeberts. That's who Kevin McCarthy works for. And by the way, for all the people who are concerned and upset all the time, you guys keep talking about Trump. You know why we keep talking about Trump? Because Trump still runs the Republican Party. So if you want us to stop talking about Trump, start talking about the people who are following Trump. Start telling Kevin McCarthy, why are you still following that clueless loser who shouldn't be running your party anymore? Ask him that. One more story, you guys, before we go to break and hear from what you guys have to say here, because we have an ongoing battle. This is now a theme. Fox News's Peter Doocey and Press Secretary Jen Psaki continue to get into their back and forth about these gas prices, which everyone's talking about in the country, especially since they're going to be they've already skyrocketed even further after President Biden cut off Russian oil imports. So this back and forth continues on. We did it a couple days ago, but no, this is not a repeat. This is very similar or the same questions on another day from Peter Doocey to Jen Psaki. Watch.
Why did you guys decide to rebrand the rise in gas prices as the hashtag Putin price hike?
I mean, if you want to use that on Fox, I welcome that. But
I think it'll get a lot of airtime because we have heard the president warn for months the gas prices were rising because of the supply chain and because of post-pandemic demand. If you guys knew for months that this was going to be the hashtag Putin price hike, why are we just hearing that now?
Well, Peter, if we go back to 6 months ago, I don't think anybody was predicting we would be exactly where we are as it relates to Russia and Ukraine. As you know, that events in the world, including the invasion by Russia of a foreign country, does prompt instability and volatility in the global oil market.
These elementary facts have to be told to Peter Doocey, but he's not deterred. Instead, after being given that answer, he then goes back to the Keystone Pipeline, which she answered a couple of days ago. Watch him ask again.
Because there's a lot of gray area here. Is a restart of the Keystone XL construction completely off the table as long as Joe Biden is president?
Well, why don't you tell me what that would help address?
I'm asking you if it is an option. You guys say all options are on the table. Is restarting Keystone construction one of them?
If we're trying to bring about more supply, that does not address any problem.
It's supply from Canada, a friendly ally, instead of Saudi Arabia.
We're already getting that oil, Peter. It's the pipeline is just a delivery mechanism. It is not an oil field, so it does not provide more supply into the system. It does not address.
Is it possible that Joe Biden will ever say, you guys can go ahead with construction of Keystone XL?
There's no plans for that, and it would not address any of the problems we're having currently. Go ahead.
Asked and answered again and again and again. So Peter, a pipeline is not a source. It is the mechanism in which they transfer what they've pumped. One more time, it's a pipeline. And by the way, if you start construction on it again right now, will it be done in time to do anything about these gas prices? Which, by the way, if it was done in 30 seconds, it still wouldn't, because it's already being delivered. So that question just, it needs to be asked for the sake of asking it. And Brett, I'm not sure exactly what to call Brett. You guys know Brett Ehrlich. He says before that Tucker Carlson asks questions just for the sake of asking those questions and not really giving any answers. That's the whole point. You ask the questions and not have any answers. So, well, I'm just asking the questions, but what you're doing with those questions is you're making a statement. So that's why I love that Jen Psaki then asked him, so what is it that this would do? What would it do if we opened up, if that pipeline was completed? Then he moved on to the next question, because that answer would make a little bit less sense to him and his viewers. Speaking of their viewers, these types of lines of questions then blend their way into regular broadcasting on Fox News. So the straight news person, Sandra Smith, she had former Obama economic advisor Robert Wolf on, and she was talking about gas prices, and he had a very straightforward point about the Keystone Pipeline that then she called debatable, something that's absolutely not debatable. Watch.
Very much, and we will take it from there with our panel. Former Trump advisor Steve Moore and former Obama economic advisor Robert Wolf. You know, it was a really interesting exchange that Peter had with Jen Psaki. And Robert, you brought up the point many times too. Well, if we want to increase production, you and the White House have urged those sitting on these leases to tap into them. Perhaps, as Peter just reported, perhaps opening up the Keystone Pipeline is not off the table for this White House. What did you take away from that?
I think XL is off the table. Let's recall a few things. One, it's the worst type of oil you can have. It's tar sands going from Alberta to the Gulf of Mexico. It wasn't going to really change anything to do with our oil supply. It was to export from the Gulf of Mexico. Also recall that under President Trump, well, let me just fit. Okay, it's not actually debatable. It has nothing to do with oil fields. It's a pipeline, and it was going to end at the Gulf of Mexico. That's a fact. You should look it up. And with respect to President Trump, as Stephen will tell you, only 10% of it was even done under his 4 years. So it's not about XL. It's about how do we become energy independent. I've always been supportive of the all-in energy approach for actually 10 years now.
Sometimes misinformation is just saying things. Just interjecting, just asking questions like Peter Doocey was doing, like Tucker Carlson likes to do. I'm just asking the questions for you guys to then think of what you would assume the answer would be based off of your partisan leanings. That's really all it is. So again, I would have loved for him to ask Sandra, so let's debate it then. Where's the debate? Can we debate? If it's debatable, let's have it. There's no debate. That's why she sat there and smirked and went, I didn't think he'd call me out. I don't know. I mean, people continue to watch this stuff. They continue to be lied to, and they continue to think that gas prices are what it is, and for the reasons behind it are these types of factors. We got more about this when we come back, though. We're gonna take our quick break here, but when we do come back, there's more on the gas prices. But there's a back and forth that what's Ben Shapiro does on this. He gives some advice, then after giving that advice, he turns around on that advice because he didn't really want to give that advice. Come on, let's keep it real. Also, we got Disney's in a bit of trouble as their potential seemingly silent backing of the Don't Say Gay bill down in Florida. We're gonna break all that down because they do have a response to that when we come back.
While the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against police. I told you we were coming.
Can you talk about it when it becomes a problem? Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock.
And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country.
November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
Back to back that I like.
Dave, say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
Hi, what's up, everybody? Back on the watch list. I'm gonna get through a few of y'all's comments here today because a few of these really speak to me, and I want to make sure you guys are heard. TYT members, first of all, thank you very much for being there with us. You guys are wonderful. I am SOC member says oil companies are making record profits. There's absolutely zero reason for them to increase supply and reduce gas prices. I mean, it's capitalism. That's what we love, right? That's what we're all about. Capitalism, make as much money on any situation possible. Ian says, I know swearing is a sign of poor vocabulary. I don't agree with that. But I miss the old days when it was common on TYT. Yes. You know what? So, no. Twitch, love you guys over at Twitch. Dringer Dragon says, trigger warning, Tucker's stupid face. Triggered. Shiny 984 says Doocey must have a fetish for this. Every day he does this. They were talking about the back and forth with Jen Psaki on the gas prices and in the XL pipeline, all that stuff. No, he does it so then he can funnel that back into those network shows the studio shows where they can say things like what Sandra Smith said. And then people only listen to those parts and go, well, this is an Obama guy lying to us. The Keystone XL pipeline would do so much. Noel Taylor 1 says, so sick of hearing about a pipeline that has nothing to do with anything. 100%, that's why they're doing it. Just like we heard about caravans of migrants coming up to come kill you and all that type of stuff. Jason Society, this is still on Twitch. Thank you guys at Twitch. How is and where is marijuana? I miss her. We need our marijuana back. Marijuana is in safe hands. I'm not exactly sure where marijuana is right now. So update, I guess will have to be coming later. YouTube super chat, thank you guys very much. Pitchforks Dragon, this again speaks to my heart. Sorry you were stuck behind a Prius on the way to studio, Jayar. I hate when that happens. Me too. There's also an F-150, but that's every once in a while. Lastly, Walt G. Zera says, true, POTUS has nothing to do with gas prices any more than the clerk, unless he imposes a tax or starts a war. Or if he cuts off Russian oil supply, and then people complain about that then, which we will get to more of in just a second. But first, let's get to Disney and the Don't Say Gay bill down there in Florida. There's Florida Republicans, they pushed that controversial Don't Say Gay legislation. It has passed, and it is expected to then reach Governor Ron DeSantis' desk, and he has been pointing out that he is in favor of such a thing. So over the past few weeks, Disney has been catching some heat for this. Disney's this big corporation, obviously, we know they're down there in Florida. Disney World is down there. And people have noticed how silent they've been on this, as they always pushed, at least externally, this inclusive environment, especially with children, am I right? So because of that, people have noticed how quiet they've been. But now the CEO of the company, his name is Bob Chapek, he is now finally speaking out, and it's odd that he's now against this whole thing. And he did point out how Ron DeSantis and he are gonna work on making this better. Watch.
Governor DeSantis committed to me that he wanted to make sure that this law could not be weaponized in any way by individuals in the state or groups in the state to in any way unduly harm or target gay, lesbian, non-binary, or transgender kids and families. And he suggested that what we could do is take a look at the legislation as written and participate with our Pride Bergs and our LGBTQ population and come up with ideas and concerns of specific aspects of that legislation which would lead to the, as I called it, the weaponization of it. And he was very open to this conversation and finding out what aspects are most concerning and working to ensure that that could not happen in the state of Florida with this legislation.
Chapik talks about how Ron DeSantis was very open about talking about the elements of the bill that targets LGBTQ youth to make sure that it won't target LGBTQ youth. That's the whole point of the bill, Bob. So if they want to change the part of the bill that targets those kids, you might just not want to have anything to do with this bill. But the thing that did stick out to me here is that Ron DeSantis came earnestly, at least according to Bob Chapik, and wanted to talk about things they could change in this bill because there's something wrong. When citizens, when children, when parents who are concerned about this were talking about it, what did Ron DeSantis have to say to them? Nothing. In fact, his spokesperson said that they're a bunch of groomers. That's what they had to say about actual people who were upset about it. When it comes to the CEO of Disney, who's not caught enough heat that he goes, hey Ron, you gotta give me something to say here. He comes earnestly and he comes quickly and he has an explanation. Why can't he have an explanation for his constituents? Because he doesn't give a damn about his constituents. Okay, so let's get to some of these details of this bill, because in case you guys forgot, let's go to the second graphic here of these details here, because we talked about how it's already horrible and it's going on his desk. So the Florida bill would also limit classroom discussions on sexual orientation and gender identity and encourage parents to sue schools or teachers that engage in these topics. Maybe if a kid comes up to one of the personnel at the school and wants to talk to them about what they can't talk about at home for maybe a good reason. So under the legislation, the lessons may not occur in kindergarten through third grade or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. It's a very, very generic statement. The bill would also allow parents to sue schools, as we pointed out. So as they're not caring about the kids, as they said, we're gonna give some more of the power back to parents. These kids are running rampant. Let's talk about the kids that are being targeted in this bill. LGBTQ young people are 120% more likely to experience homelessness than non-LGBTQ youth. It's estimated that about 7% of youth in the United States are LGBTQ, while 40% of youth experiencing homelessness are LGBTQ. Why is that? According to the research from True Colors United, the most common reason the LGBTQ youth experience homelessness is family rejection due to their sexual orientation or gender identity. Family rejection. Half of all youth get a negative reaction from their parents when they come out to them. More than 1 in 4 are thrown out of their homes. According to service providers, additional reasons include aging out of foster care system, poverty, and abuse in the home. So if a kid comes to a teacher at school, says, I can't talk to my parents about this because they're gonna kick me out. They've talked about how much they hate gay folks all the time. I know where they stand. I don't know what to do. I'm in a bit of a crisis. I can't concentrate on math. We go, I have an idea. Let's tell the parents that your kid came to us and said they're afraid of telling you who they are. So you can, and if we don't, you get to sue us. That's this bill. And that's what then the CEO of Disney is gonna have a discussion with Ron DeSantis about. By the way, this is what, by the way, also Disney has given tons of money to everyone that's been a part of this bill. That's another aspect. But really quickly, because this is the last thing that Bob Chapik and Disney are doing to maybe get themselves out of the woods. Let's go to the graphic number 10 here. So the CEO here, Bob Chapik, said on Wednesday that the Walt Disney Company is pledging $5 million to the Human Rights Campaign and other organizations protecting LGBTQ rights following backlash to the company's initial quiet response to the Florida's Don't Say Gay legislation, as well as a report that Disney has given money to all of the bill's sponsors. So recap here, Bob Chapik is gonna give $5 million to some human rights campaign groups and hope that you guys get the F off his back. That's what it is. Ron DeSantis is gonna talk to me and make sure that this bill that's targeting kids doesn't target kids. Oh, and here's $5 million. Can you shut up now? That's what this is. Next story. Sorry, I'm really annoyed today. Let's talk about Windmills. Former President Donald Trump. He went on a UFC podcast because that's a place to talk these types of things. And he was asked about what he thought about the war in Ukraine, Russia's invasion. And he had some scintillating answers. He had some good details about what we should do and what's going on in Ukraine. Watch.
What do you see happening next then? Because it seems like the tensions are high. How does this all end? Is this going to be like a long-term thing? How do you see it unfolding?
Well, and I said this a long time ago, if this happens, we are playing right into their hands, the green energy. The windmills, they don't work. They're too expensive. They kill all the birds. They ruin your landscapes. And yet the environmentalists love the windmills. And I've been preaching this for years. The windmills, and I had them way down, but the windmills are the most expensive energy you can have. And they don't work. And by the way, they last a period of 10 years. And by the time they start rusting and rotting all over the place, nobody ever takes them down. They just go onto the next piece of prairie or land and destroy that.
Russian invasion of Ukraine, windmills. We're playing right into their hands by talking about windmills because, by the way, wind energy is the most prominent form of energy in the United States. Or is it what all these other conservatives are talking about, gas prices and fossil fuels? It's weird how we can talk about both things, but somehow windmills is the problem here. I wish he'd have connected it. I don't know if that host there then said, "What the hell are you talking about?" Because that's probably the most apt follow-up to that. So by the way, as he's talking about the expense of windmills, and by the way, it kills your landscaping, I think he thinks windmills go up in the middle of major downtown cities. Anyways, let's go to some of the details about windmills and about those blades and then all of the rusting that he says happens. Trust, he's never been near any information about windmills. So here we go. Although most wind turbine blades can be used up to 20 to 25 years, most blades are taken down after 10, so that they can be replaced with larger and more powerful designs. It's like almost like there's a progression in these types of things. Also, we talked about the expense. US Department of Energy allocated $104 million in fiscal year 2020 funds for wind energy technologies. Whoa, damn, maybe he's right. $104 million? Man, it's only 99 million more than what the CEO of Disney is gonna give to get everybody to get off his back. Anyways, so more about the expensive forms of energy. $104 million, man, Donald Trump must be right until you read this. Conservative estimates put US direct subsidies to the fossil fuel industry at roughly $20 billion per year, with 20% currently allocated to coal and 80% to natural gas and crude oil. European Union subsidies are estimated to total 55 billion euros annually. So let's review. Millions smaller than billions, 104 million versus 20 billion. You tell me which one is more expensive and which ones we're paying more for and subsidizing to this degree. Now, if we need to subsidize new green energy and more innovation to get ourselves off of fossil fuels to as big as extent as possible, I think that's a large endeavor because of how much of it really is pumping through our systems. Then I think that's worth us then being together on making sure we're not dependent on foreign oil and things like that, or even these arguments about gas prices and all that. You guys know this, I'm an old school, gas guzzling, emission smelling, loving car driver. I love that stuff. But you know what, sometimes we have to give up a few things to make sure that we're moving on in the right directions and now everybody's driving Priuses. I don't wanna get on that again. Either way it goes, more. It includes $14.7 billion in federal subsidies and $5.8 billion in state level incentives, more on those fossil fuels. So I think it's pretty clear. Anytime Donald Trump decides to bring up random things like windmills when he's talking about the invasion into Ukraine, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Let's keep that real, first of all. We got more happening here. Let's take another break, you guys, before we get back to Ben Shapiro, because he has a beef with President Biden for listening to advice that Ben Shapiro gave. When we come back.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm going to vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son.
You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl.
Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Can we eat in here?
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful, arguably one of the top Democrats in the House. But there's someone finally challenging him, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The election is today. If she wins, David beats Goliath.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
You made that happen. You're David. You just beat Goliath tonight. 2018 is a warm-up act. Wait till you get a load of 2020.
What's up, you guys? Really fast. Members, Mickey C, the silver hair dragon. First of all, hi, thank you very much for being back with us. There are no windmills, Mickey C says. There are, however, wind turbines. And if they don't work, please explain how trains in the Netherlands have been running 100% on wind power for almost 5 years. Well, that's the Netherlands, bro. Weak countries, innovation, advancement, progression, please. Twitch, Teddy Bear Dragon says the problem is Disney's been funding the politicians that voted in the bill, even after they knew that what their points of view were. Of course they did, and they will continue to. Part of their excuse was, we give to everyone. We don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, as long as you're doing what we would like for you to do and progressing our bottom line, that's great, awesome. We don't have to talk about this though. Lastly, YouTube super chat, thank you very much. B.O., maybe it's just Bo, there's a space there. Says, I know you wear all the teams as fashion accessories, talking about these hats I always wear. Still, it's great to see you pimping for the Brew Crew today. Love the show, keep up the great work. Thank you very much, the Brew Crew. Of course, my kid was on the Brewers a few years ago, so I've got a hat for every baseball team my kid has played for. And it is now, it just keeps progressing. The hat closet's full. Let's get started, you guys, because we have a few more stories to get to, and I've already talked too much. Let's go to Ben Shapiro. So Ben Shapiro has engaged in probably one of the most blatant cases of playing politics here. Because as everyone's talking about these gas prices and then ways that we can maybe cut off Vladimir Putin and Russia's money line as they invade Ukraine, all these things come together. But a few days ago, Shapiro did talk about ways that we can cut off Russian supply of money, and it had to do with their oil supply. Let's watch.
So if you're seeking to dissuade Russia from doing what it is doing, you do need to cut off relations with them. You do need to stop attempting to work with them on issues supposedly important to them. And you actually do need to call on the American people to make a sacrifice. Because instead of saying, listen, we have to bring the harshest sanctions we possibly can, that might mean higher prices at the pump. And we are also going to have to tell the left, we're gonna have to tell people on the progressive left, that we are going to put our environmental policies on hold because we need to compete with Russia, we need to compete with China, we need to be energy independent. That is a national security issue. Instead of Joe Biden saying that to his left, and instead of saying to everybody else, and that means that temporarily your gas prices are going to go up, but this is what it means to be the leader of the free world. Instead of Joe Biden saying any of that, they just refuse to say any of that. If you're going to be a leader, that means you sometimes have to say things you know will be unpopular to the American people. Joe Biden isn't willing to do that.
March 3rd, Joe Biden is not willing to do that. He doesn't have the courage, he doesn't have the leadership, he doesn't have the guts to tell the left that we gotta stop all these environmental policies, all these subsidies that go to these green energy policies, all this stuff we're following AOC and the Green New Deal, none of that's happening. But as long as you say so, enough people will believe it. Now, he did talk about cutting off Russian oil, and maybe that'll help us with their aggression and their invasion to Ukraine. So crazy enough, President Biden is listening to Ben Shapiro. Watch.
We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine.
It's going to go up. Can't do much right now. Russia's responsible.
I'm cutting off Russian oil, and I will tell the people who don't want to hear this, your gas prices are going to go up. Sounds like it's exactly what Ben Shapiro said a strong, courageous leader should do. This is great. I think we finally have this American unity that we've been looking for. Joe Biden's fulfilling his campaign promises of unifying the country. Ben Shapiro and Joe Biden agree on this issue. 6 days after Ben Shapiro made those declarations, and a few days after Joe Biden apparently obliged, Ben Shapiro had this congratulatory thing to say. What?
Joe Biden yesterday, he announced that he was finally going to ban Russian gas and oil imports. He'd been called upon to do this for a couple of weeks. Bizarrely, he had been lagging behind many of the European countries on this, despite the fact that only about 5% of imported American oil comes from Russia. Here's the thing. He should have done this a couple of weeks ago when he first rolled out the sanctions. But if he's going to do this now, then it seems as though he is doing this as an excuse. Honestly, it seems as though he is doing this as an excuse so then he can blame Putin and Russia for gas prices that are already rising on his watch. Now, it's the right move to cut off Russian natural gas and oil if you actually are hoping that sanctions are going to effectuate policy change. I'm skeptical that's actually going to happen, but you do want to undermine the Russian war-making machine, I get it. However, you are the president of the United States, and you don't get to just say, wash your hands clean of this thing and be like, yeah, it's all Putin. But that's exactly what Joe Biden is doing now. Now he's going to abdicate responsibility on an issue where, again, he was talking back in November about how gas prices were way too high for most Americans. And so we're just going to pretend that didn't exist. We're going to pretend that the world of high gas prices started spinning yesterday. Nope. One.
He almost better when he talks backwards. So by the way, just the end part there, he's gonna act like he can now say the gas prices have just gone up. What we're talking about is this major increase in gas prices since they've cut off Russian oil supplies. That's what we're talking about. So before that, was it every day talking about gas prices? Back in November and December, was it every day talking about gas prices? Was it Peter Doocey in the press room talking about gas prices? No, it's right now because of what's happened with Russian oil and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Outside of that, there's this odd inadvertent covering for Putin here and saying, well, now you're gonna cut off Russian oil, which I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that that's actually gonna do anything as far as it causing real change here. Well, you suggested it, bro. Is it or is it not? So, and there's this weird cover for Putin, by the way, and I'm not even sure if they even know they're doing it. So when you then say, oh, now you're gonna blame Putin, it's not like he invaded another country or anything. What's the matter with you? Listening to anybody talking about cutting off Russian oil and having the courage to tell people of the real consequences of doing that. And if they're willing to, which by the way, there was some polling that did say a significant number of Americans were okay with it. And by the way, I don't care whether you are or not, because I can understand people are thinking directly into their pocketbooks, their wallets, their bank accounts, and people can't afford these gas prices. That's why they're pushing this so hard. And it's also why they found absolutely no way that President Biden can land anywhere safely, in their opinion, on this. It's always a moving target. As long as you can say that he's doing something wrong, even if he listens to exactly what you said he should do. If he goes in and listens to Lindsey Graham's and the Sean Hannity's of the world and tries to murder Putin, or then starts shooting up a 40-mile convoy of Russian military vehicles, they'll go, I can't believe he's starting World War III, even though they suggested it. That's why you don't listen to people like this, because they don't really mean what they're saying. And we've talked about the profits from BP and all those Shell and Chevron, ExxonMobil. We've seen that. Midas Touch did have a tweet about that. Look that up. But really, it's a moving target. So please don't listen to them. Their point is not to come up with anything to help the country. Their point is to come up with a way to get their candidates and elected leaders put into office so they can implement more horrible policies that will destroy the country. Let's go to this next story, you guys, because Nick Fuentes is still talking a lot. This young incel white nationalist, Nick Fuentes, he loves him some Donald Trump. He did have that AFPAC thing over a couple weeks ago where Marjorie Taylor Greene showed up. But now he's focused back on Big Daddy, Donald Trump, and he loves him. Watch.
They're trying to cram this down our throat. These people that are not like us. You know what Americans want? It's pretty clear when they elected Trump. Trump got up there and he didn't say, hi, we're going to bring the workers of the world unite. You know, black, Hispanic, and white workers for populism. Let's unionize DoorDash. Trump went up there and said, they're bringing drugs, crime, they're rapists. You know, he said, I'm calling for a shutdown of Muslims coming into America. You know, we're going to say Merry Christmas. He was like this close to saying the N-word. You know, like, that's what Americans want. That's what this guy talks like us. He's our hero. He said, I'm your voice.
Donald Trump almost said the N-word. He talks like us. He's our American hero. Remember all those things. As we listened to Nick Fuentes then talk about how America needs to be a lot more white. And again, this is a guy who pushes back and says that he's not a white nationalist, that he's not one of those people who's always dividing the country in many ways as possible. But again, he connects himself to Donald Trump, who many of his followers also believe he's not this white nationalist, he's not a huge racist. But every time you follow people who point it out, don't listen to me, listen to Nick Fuentes. He just said, Donald Trump is my guy, he's my hero. So if you would like Nick Fuentes to be in office, you'd probably also like Donald Trump to be in office, am I right? Either way it goes, let's watch more from Nick Fuentes.
America's gonna be majority minority by 2042. And the country's gonna be minority white. And that means America's gonna be a lot different than it is now. It's gonna look a lot more like Los Angeles and Miami, and it's gonna look a lot more like New York. And you're telling me that even though America is going to dramatically change in that period of time because the people will have changed and the different people will create a different country, it's still going to be America? How's that? As long as they're citizens, as long as they're speaking English when they buy their Netflix subscription? That's too inclusive. That's too inclusive. We're not for inclusivity. We've had enough inclusivity.
I'm just trying to figure out why Joe Biden hasn't united the country yet. So yeah, it's if we have too much diversity throughout our country, it's gonna look like LA, New York, Miami, those places that everyone across the country likes to go visit and hang out at and be like, oh, I can't wait to get to LA. It's gonna be so dope because there's an energy there. There's a diversity there. There's people who've helped build it a certain way. So stay the hell out of all those cities that you guys hate so much. People move here all the time like, oh man, nasty LA. I can't believe you guys have all these damn immigrants here. Where do I sign up? How do I get in here? Hey, I'd like to be a star. That's the way people think. That's the way they act on these things. So he'll say this type of stuff. Again, next time you wonder why someone says Donald Trump is a racist, ask Nick Fuentes, because he just laid it out perfectly for you. Last story, really fast. I love this. Fox News has pushed out this latest ad with, as you see there, Mike Huckabee is pushing more educational material for kids. A little bit of propaganda to make sure you know who Donald Trump really is. Watch this.
Hey parents and grandparents, as we wait to see what's next for President Trump, Mike Huckabee's education company wants to help your kids learn all about President Trump's greatest achievements during his first term. That's why we're giving away the Kids Guide to President Trump for free. This fun kids guide will help your kids to understand everything President Trump has already accomplished for America. What's more, it's part of a very special gift bundle that includes a free kids magazine and a free video lesson too. To learn more and order this free gift bundle, just visit freetrumpguide.com. That's freetrumpguide.com.
If you visit freetrumpguide.com, you'll get more propaganda, more BS, more stuff about how Donald Trump is the next god. Make sure you teach your kids. Remember what they say about what we're teaching kids in schools. This is why they're so concerned. This is what they'd like to teach your kids in school. This is why they're saying that all this dirty liberalism is getting pushed on these kids in college even. They're not kids anymore, by the way. So here's some of the details from that garbage site. The mainstream media has been no friend to President Trump, and they'll never admit that he did a great job leading our country and making the changes that America needs. But as future voters, our children and grandchildren deserve to understand the truth about President Trump and what made him a great president. By the way, stop there. Why do our kids need to know about what Donald Trump did in his first term? And we're talking about them being voters. They're exposing exactly their whole point here. It's to build them up to be these good, loyal, mindless minions that just go, well, Donald Trump did great things. Are these elementary age school children, are they voting anytime soon? Are they voting for Donald Trump? By the time your 5-year-old is voting, Donald Trump is gonna be gone from the earth. So it's not really gonna be a thing that they can vote for him on. This is to indoctrinate. They say it right there in the words. One more, the Kids Guide to President Trump is unbiased. Okay, and will help your kids learn everything there is to know from his election in 2016 and his greatest accomplishments as president. What's more, the special issue of Eve Everbright Kids magazine will help your kids celebrate America and enjoy oodles of great content and activities that will keep them entertained for hours. I wonder if part of this truth is talking about how it's unbiased and they're gonna let you know everything about Donald Trump. I wonder what they're gonna tell them about the election of 2020. Are they gonna say that it was stolen from Donald Trump? Or are we gonna point out that Donald Trump, nearly 2 years later, is still complaining about that election, saying that he was robbed? Oh my God, I can't believe they took the election from me. Is that gonna be in the books? Are we gonna talk about how all of his people continue to push these lies over and over and over again? We can talk about that? Is that in the book for these future voters? No, it's indoctrination and it's propaganda. That's it for the watch. Let's see, guys. John's about to come in here. I think they've got Anna Kasparian today. I lied to you guys yesterday. Anna's on today. We'll see you guys later. Here comes John. Back tomorrow.